Hello, fans of the books of 9 and 10 Penance. I'm back. It's Friday in the morning. Changed the schedule up again. And I'll be doing a live reading of the second novel from the series. Up on YouTube, I have. Ooh, I can get that. Got the shadows in there. You can check it out. The Magic Paintbrush has its own playlist now. And I read through that whole book, so hopefully you'll check that out. And if you've already listened to that one, we're on book 2 now. All right, we are on The Greatest Storm, and I'll be reading from that today. And then I've also got book 3 out, but that one doesn't have a Kindle version, so let's see how well this goes today. But doing these in the morning has worked out. It's kind of eliminated a lot of the unsavory comments that I was having a problem with. The only other downside is I can't go anywhere cool because of the noise. I used to just do these outdoors. But anyways, reading from the book The Greatest Storm, the story of Allison White and Stephen Blackman. We are on 5. The Stone That Time Forgot, which is integral, which is found in every book. The stone is, at least, in some form or another. Let's see here. Here we are. In the last chapter, Allison White had just had an encounter with the myth of the sea. And now, back to Stephen, who's stuck on the island and lost his memory. The only thing he remembers is that he's in love. So I'll start by reading from that chapter, The Stone That Time Forgot. I think it's kind of a short chapter, maybe. Meanwhile, on the island, excuse me. Should get my water here. Hold on a second. Okay. Got the water. Meanwhile, on the island of Lost Souls, Stephen was about to play a deadly game of his own. He stood in front of the stone that time forgot, contemplating the thoughts it might hold on where his one true love wait to be found. What he didn't realize is that it was just a stone and couldn't hold any thoughts. Only memories of the past, and it couldn't speak on behalf of those memories. He hadn't removed the stone yet, so he still had a choice. But the temptation to remove it hadn't subsided. He got down on his hands and knees, unstrapped the conch horn, and set it down carefully next to the stone. Then he did the most foolish thing of all. He asked if it knew where his one true love wait. The stone sat there lifeless and plain as it did since the beginning of time, not uttering a single word in response. After all, it was just a rock. So he tapped on it lightly to try and get it to wake up from its eternal slumber. Still, he received no reply from this inanimate thing that seemed to be asleep. He tapped on it a second time and whispered, "Hello? Are you awake?" to this person, place, or thing resting in front of him. Again, the stone did not answer, but something from deep below the earth did. There was a faint noise coming from the other side. He tapped on it a few more times. The sound kept getting louder. The more he tapped on it, the more he listened, until it rang loud and clear to the world above. Something was down there, all right. To him, it sounded like a flock of women giggling. To him, it sounded like the women the men were seeking. That maybe, just maybe, they were stuck behind the stone and buried deep in a hole, but that would be impossible. After all, it was a rather small stone, and all those women couldn't possibly fit in one hole. Then he put his ear to the ground, hoping to hear some gossiping news about the day. Yes, he was sure, There is no doubt. That's where they wait to be found. This is where they've been hiding all along, and my search is finally over. Now, all he had to do was remove the stone and yell, "Ollie, Ollie, Oxenfree," and they would all come out of hiding. He'd forgotten his own name, the life he once led, and he clearly forgot how this game is played. He couldn't take it anymore. He knew they were down there just waiting to be discovered. All he had to do was remove that stone and have himself a look. He carefully eyed the rock over, deciding exactly how he would pick it up. He had to be quick, though, in case they got startled and ran away. He went in for a test grab. No, better play it safe. So he stepped back, took a good look to the left and a good look to the right. No one was there to tell him otherwise. He reached in and removed it, placing it next to the hole. The stone, at last, it had finally been removed. Now all he had to do was figure out what to do next. Then he heard that strange noise again. It didn't sound like a bunch of women discussing on who would look good with their hair done up in a bow and who would not. It sounded more like a bubbling gurgle. He leaned in closer, closed one eye, and had a good look with the other. The gurgle turned into a hope that soon the love of his life would somehow be able to manage to squeeze through and come out the other side. But that's not what happened. That's not what came out. The force of something else time forgot made its way to the surface, and there was nothing he could do to stop it. The hole grumbled, then made a gruffly sound as a sprinkle of water hit him in the eye, followed by enough to pool around the hole and fill up a small bowl. He leaned back, deliriously confused as he licked his lips. Where had they all gone? He wondered, mulling over his options. Moments later, a mountain of water shot out of the hole, covering the top of the plateau and spilling out over the sides. What he didn't know is that this stone in particular held the very first drop of rain in reverse. The water was so pure, in fact, and filled with the very essence of the beginning of life, it caused all flora and fauna alike to grow to unimaginable heights. This battle amongst plants was a strange one indeed. These prehistoric weeds began fighting for room for their roots to grow in deep. Only the cunning and carnivorous who sought out green blood would survive the night. There was nothing he could do, not without the knowledge a botanist possessed. So he put the stone back. It was an easy task to place it on top of the hole, but it wouldn't be as easy to survive what he had unleashed. These plants were staring him down, eyeing him over, and questioning whether or not he was chlorophyll or foe. He looked for a safe place to hide, but it was difficult not to get lost, even standing in one spot. Then a Venus flytrap bit him in the rear. He leapt into the air and ran, but there was nowhere to escape, except for a narrow path, entangled in a mess of prickly purple plants. He crawled his way through the thick underbelly of the newly planted jungle, and brushed up against a rather potent poison ivy. He should have known better. But alas, the time at camp when he was young was a skill that served him a purpose no more. In the path that lay ahead, the thorns of an aloe vera plant were sticking out. He just had to reach it. He navigated his way, being pricked and prodded and poked by the most highly intellectual and sophisticated snobbery of shrubs and hedges. They pointed out his flaws, discussed his lack of hygiene, and other things plants of this nature would talk about if you happened to wander by. Finally, after reaching the aloe vera, he washed himself off and gave out a big sigh of relief. That's when he saw something shiny. It glared like a beacon of curiosity. It couldn't be, but what else could it be? The eye of a giant lizard staring him down with a devil's brow. Intrigued, he stared the beast right in the center of its pupil. It did not blink, and it did not sneeze. He waved his hand over the great mysterious eye. Aha! He said to himself. It was a reptile he feared. Not a reptile he feared, but a rare species of flora, not fauna, with an eye stuck in the middle. He didn't realize it, but he'd wandered right in the middle of a garden of cannibalistic plants. They were in a state of hibernation. All he had to do was avoid making noise or lightly touching any of them, although it was an easy task for a stone to sit still, perfectly still in one spot since the beginning of time. It was not so easy for Stefan. He'd already proven he had no skills as a botanist or a librarian for that matter, so this was going to be a challenge. For reasons unknown to me, he picked up a rock and threw it at an unsuspecting plant just to see what would happen. The plant immediately woke up and ground the rock into small bits and pieces and then spit it back out as rubble into a patch of dandelions. Pollen wallowed aloft in the air. His nostrils began flaring up mightier than the winds of the greatest storm. His eyes boiled red. Oh, what a terrible feeling it is when you have to sneeze, but you just can't sneeze. He blinked once, holding his breath. He blinked twice, plugging his ears. Then he blinked thrice and sneezed. The pact had been broken. The plants immediately woke up. All eyes were on him, most curious, and yet somehow he didn't feel comfortable introducing himself. Stefan backed away inch by inch as they closed in. He turned around to look for an escape. There was a field of unusually bright yellow flowers, and there was a different type for every day, every minute, every second of the week. Daisies, irises, tulips, roses, sunflowers, orchids, geraniums, pansies, impatiens, marigolds, zinnias, carnations, hiccubuses, poinsettias, magnolias, daffodils, snapdragons, chrysanthemums, and sweet peas. Oh my! He thought to himself, this has to be the love of my life's favorite color. Now which one of these will I pick and give to her? He hopped to his feet and frolicked through the field. Flower upon flower was picked and plucked, followed by a chant. She loves me not. No matter how many flowers he picked and how many petals he dropped, the answer always came out the same. She loves me, followed by a deep sigh. This may have been his most difficult challenge on top of the plateau, yet he knew he only had to pick one for the love of his life, Allison White. With so many to choose from, he didn't know which one would be right until he saw one on the other side of the field, hiding behind a giant purple flower. He knew this had to be the one, so he set out to pluck it for his beloved. The giant purple plant was quite interesting, but not the one for the love of his life. It had tips that sparkled under the moonlight. Surely it couldn't be foe. All the deadly plants were behind him. He decided to pluck one of these tips as a light to navigate his way to the darkness. He reached in and tugged on the roots. The plant latched onto his arms and hoisted him up in the air with the strength of a 1,000 roaring lions. He tossed and he turned, but that was the only thing he was able to accomplish, and that made things much, much worse. There was no point in struggling with something that clearly flourished in wit. So while he was hanging upside down, he continued to look for a flower that was just right. He thought to himself, perhaps that one over there, or maybe that one would have been the perfect gift for the love of his life. They were all quite beautiful and sat nowhere near this flower, and after all, it was the thought that counts. Time continued to wither. He counted the ways with each flower in the field when he noticed they began to change, evolving into other plants. They grew razor-sharp teeth, sprouted legs, and started surrounding him. Chlorophyll, friend or foe, these newly evolved plants began prepping him for fertilizer. One of the little ones hopped up on his shoulder and started plucking the hairs on his head, exacting revenge for the way he treated their great ancestors. The warmth of the sun was just around the bend. It shined on him, causing the plants to wither and die, casting out its closely guarded secret kept since the beginning of time. It seemed they only flourished under the light of the moon. The night of horrors was finally over, and a new day of planting and searching for the love of his life could begin. He brushed the last of the decay off his shoulders, and then he walked over to the edge of the plateau. He no longer believed they were hiding underneath any more stones. He didn't find what he was searching for, but he did see the men he met the other day still waiting for his reply. He picked up the conch horn and blew one gallant blow with all his might, alerting them to his attention. But it did not blow or even squeak like a mouse. All it did was spill out the very last drop of water that time forgot. So he slung it back around his left shoulder and then plucked a yellow flower from the field that hadn't yet wilted as a reminder of what he was searching for. He placed it through a hole in his shirt and climbed down from the plateau to meet up with the rest of the men who wait for an answer. The end. There we go, and that's the end of that chapter, and tomorrow I'll be back, and the next chapter is called The Tale of the Forgotten, Lonely Begotten Sailors of the Sea, and that will be a chapter with Allison White, who's now lost at sea searching for Stefan. I hope you'll tune in tomorrow morning, and the rest of the chapters should have their own playlist now, so they're up on my channel. You can check them out and catch up on the story of Allison White and Stefan Blackman. So there we have it, The Greatest Storm. I did the cover art for the book. But it's about two lovers separated by an ocean, and Stefan has lost his memory. He's on an island, cursed by a witch. So he walks through the field of forgetfulness, and he forgets everything. He can't even remember his own name, but he knows he's in love, and he's searching for the love of his life, which does not exist on this island. And then Allison, and we'll read in the next chapter, is sailing the open ocean in a little rowboat looking for him. And she encounters her own fun adventures along the way. But hello, everybody. Thanks to everybody who listened. And hello, I'm terrible at this, Alexi, Dinish, Sketch, and Amulad. Well, thanks, guys, for tuning in. I hope you'll come back tomorrow. Same time, 10 o'clock.